Good evening, everyone. And thanks so much for tuning in to Talking Taboo. I'm your host, Trista, and with me, I have some phenomenal co hosts. And as I introduce you all, can you all give the audience just a little wave? I have with me none other than Psych Perspective, the Mrs. Kruneshia, and the lovely Hasnaa Deanna. How have your week been so far? Anybody?
Honey, look, I'm just enjoying this nice snow. Actually, just my days off.
Okay.
How about everybody else?
It's been pretty good for me. It started snowing today here in Georgia, so I'm just enjoying the weather.
Mhm.
Just work, life, and trying to keep afloat.
Okay, I understand that. Well, for myself, most of you might have known that I just actually came back from vacation. So I was going a good 3 weeks. I was in Europe. So as of right now, I'm feeling refreshed and I'm feeling satisfied right now. Okay. Now school just started back. So, I have to transition and get into the swing of that. So, but for right now, I'm feeling pretty good. Okay. Um, So let's go ahead and dive into our conversation piece for today, which is dysfunctional families. Okay. Now, when I say those words, dysfunctional families, what comes to your mind? I'm going to start with you, Sai.
When I hear dysfunctional families, what comes to my mind is a lack of stability, trust, compassion, respect for each other, self-respect, potentially some underlying traumatic experiences that contribute to the ongoing dysfunctional dynamics. That's just some of the things that come to my mind when I hear it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Kruneshia?
Well, when I hear it, the first thing I think is like, first of all, when you talk about anything concerning dysfunctional families, I'm thinking drama because nobody wants to talk about anything that stems from, anything that has been passed down in our families. So the first thing is drama because, people don't want to take accountability for, those issues that are passed down from generation to generation. But that is what I think about. It's just, I would think from slavery and each generation since, it's like basically the same things every family goes through. Like, it's like so much trauma and nobody knows how to deal with it, but nobody wants to talk about it either.
Right. That's good. What about you, Hasnaa?
I think for me, to sum it all up, I'm going to piggyback on what Psych and Nisha said. But for me, I think the first thing that comes to mind is secrets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind. Like, to sum it all up, secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with, a lot of secrets that are hidden in the family, it causes so much dysfunction. It keeps everybody separated.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, secrets.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I think about it, what I think about, or what I see, shall I say, is I see parents that are not functioning as they should. What I see is pretty much the healthy or functional family turned on its head, where the children are pretty much in the positions to where they are meeting the needs or the it's as if the children are the family within or the parents within the family. The children are meeting the needs of the parents, their siblings, their own needs, and it seems as if the children's needs are being neglected. So that's what I think of when I think of a dysfunctional family. Okay. Now, how many of you would say that you came from a dysfunctional family?
I feel like we're like, raise your hand if you too have been.
You know what? I'm wondering if when it comes to Black families, I'm wondering if there are families that don't have dysfunction. I'm wondering, is that even possible?
Is it, yeah, does it even exist? I was reading something and I saw that, and how they know, who knows, but I saw that at least 85% of families are dysfunctional. And I would like to think that it's probably higher than that, because when I think of the generations before us, what I think of is so much emotional neglect and so much trauma. I like to think that you can't possibly begin to raise healthy kids until you address what's within. So if you have unresolved trauma, your family is dysfunction. That's how I look at it. If you're a parent and you have yet to deal with what's within, you're pushing all of that onto your kids, whether it's conscious or unconsciously. So that's what I think. What makes your family dysfunctional?
Just going back off of what all three of you have said, it's generational cycles of trauma and abuse, or some people say generational curses, but it's just like the same issues of trigger warning. Now let me go on and say this: trigger warning, not trying to to bring up some sour feelings around this, but a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of things that are just covered, and it happens in each generation. People being in unequally yoked relationships, or relationships where people are being physically abused, mentally, psychologically, verbally, financially abused, and they're in relationships where, this probably shouldn't have resulted in a marriage, let alone having children. So it's a lot of things like that when I think about my own personal experiences and hearing from other people what they've gone through, it's like a lot of those are similarities.
Yeah.
I know for me, I witnessed it at a young age. I just knew that at a very young age something wasn't right. Just sitting back and going to, family gatherings, or I remember growing up, like my family and I used to gather at my aunt's house, and that was the place where on Friday nights we would play like Tunk and Pokino and games like that, where we would play the games and get the food and all the kids would come together. But then I used to sit back and I would just hear the different conversations from family of I remember times where my aunt's kids will be coming up, and you'll get some family members like, oh, here comes so and so's kids, and oh my goodness, they're just so well mannered, and stuff like that. And then it would be my siblings and my mother's children. It's like, oh my God, here they come. They dress nice, and they well, in this area, but oh God, they so loud, and and then you walk in the door and everybody's like, oh hi. And I'm
the
sitting
fakeness.
Honey, don't they do that at church? Don't they do that in church too?
I'm like, is this really going on here? And I used to always tell my mom, I'm like, I don't know why we going over here every week, because everybody say the same thing every week. Like what's going on here? But I knew back then, just from that little clip, I was like, oh, this ain't right. It's a lot of family hating on family, and you don't even understand why. So then once you see that going on, so now the cousins are growing up disliking each other because of what other family members are putting in your mind, and and stuff like that. So
what do you all believe is behind the family rivalry and the competition? What do you think stems or lies behind that?
Colorism. Sometimes. I think a lot of the issues are stem from the church. I'm sorry. And that could be a whole conversation for another day.
It is, and
but
we have it coming up on that.
And so, I think that's something that people hide behind.
Religion.
Yeah, so I think that's probably one of the biggest issues in our families.
For me, I agree again. The fakeness, the competition, basically having to put on a show for when you're out and about, but then behind closed doors, it's a totally different vibe. Like people whole personality switch up. But going back to that question, I feel like religion definitely, like you said, plays a huge role in how the family functions. And then looking at historical analysis of white supremacy and, as you stated earlier, slavery, the enslavement of people, and that breaking up families and pretty much making it where everything's divided and conquered. Like you got parents that are jealous of their children, and then you got parents putting the siblings against each other or cousins and what have you. And it's just like, to me, that goes back to the enslavement of our ancestors and how they were treated and pitted against each other. And we just see a revolving cycle of that because it hasn't been fully addressed and we haven't broke that chain yet.
Right. Now, do you all believe that it's more so of, it's just our conditioning, so to speak, as to why we continue these things? Or do you believe that we're just living in more of a narcissistic type society to where it's just a part of our personality? It's just who we are as people more so.
I don't think so. I think really it's about identifying that there is a problem. That is the hardest part sometimes. Once you can identify there's an issue, just like she said, as a child, I saw that there was a problem here. Once you see there is a problem, like what are you going to do to correct it?
Yeah.
Because it's going to start with you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's like when you bring the problem to the forefront, then now you're the problem.
Oh,
amen.
Yeah.
You're the problem. Once you bring everything that has been hidden, you're the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it goes on and on and on and on. So it's like you have people who accountability. Nobody wants to be accountable for what they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to point the finger at the next person and expose somebody else's flaws. But when it's time for you to be exposed, then it's like, you hiding behind the wall. You don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do really quick, I have this definition from Wikipedia of what a dysfunctional family is. And I was trying to get it up on the screen, but for some reason it will not. Bear with me. I can share it somehow.
So while you're looking for that, I'm just wondering, like, once you realize you're in a dysfunctional family, like, is that something that can be fixed?
That's a good question. What do y'all think?
It depends on all the parties involved. I mean, you can't fix it by yourself. Like, I'm in a place in my life now where I'm fixing some things, fixing things that were, done to me. Mm-hmm. But like somebody has to be the bigger person, because if not, then it's just going to continue. So now you have to like put yourself out there. Like you have to be the one. If you're the strong one in the family and you feel as though like, okay, let me be the example. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but somebody has to do it, because if not, it's going to always be this division. Mm-hmm. So, it depends on, for me, I believe that it depends on the parties involved. You have to be willing. I can't come to you, Nisha, as a family member that I had alts with and think that, when we sit down and have this conversation, I'm the one who I'm open and willing to admit whatever I have done or hurt you in any kind of way, knowingly or unknowingly. But then when it's your turn to open up and you have wronged me somehow, now you want to shut down. It's like, oh, well, I did the best that I could. It wasn't my fault.
Oh my God. Everybody parents.
Oh my gosh. If I could get paid.
They swear.
Yes. And we're going to actually talk about that next week. So for those of you all watching, first let me say thank you for tuning in. We got a good one coming next week. So we're going to be getting into talking about these toxic parents and everything that comes along with that. So make sure to tune in. Okay, you guys, I think I have it. Let me know when y'all can see it on your side.
I can see it.
Okay.
I can see it.
So pretty much what I did, I copied the definition from the internet that I got on what a dysfunctional family is, and also the types of dysfunctional families. I'm waiting for it to get. For some reason, do y'all see what a dysfunctional family is, or you see parenting types?
No, I see parenting
Parenting
type.
I see parenting types.
Okay, well, I may
I
have.
think you need to go to the first slide.
Yeah, because for some reason it's showing one thing on my screen, but it's not sharing the entire thing. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. If not, I'm just gonna read it. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like that because if I blow it up, it doesn't seem to work. So, what is a dysfunctional family? According to Wikipedia, it's a family unit in which the emotional and or physical needs of the children or child frequently goes unmet by the parents or caregivers. Now, this can be done intentionally or unintentionally. There can also be frequent conflict, misbehavior, and or abuse. And this abuse can be physically, sexual, verbal, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial. And one thing I want to say is I don't think people talk enough about the emotional and mental side of abuse. So many people believe because my parents didn't hit me or, leave scars that I wasn't abused. My childhood was fine. But what I think a lot of us have been is emotionally and mentally abused. And I'm gonna keep it real, like especially in the the Black and brown communities. For a lot of people, being verbally assaulted, cursed out, talked down to,
Okay.
normalized, but that is actually abuse. And you wonder why so many people are dealing with self-esteem issues, confidence issues, and all of the above in these toxic relationships.
Right. And it take like a lifetime to try to build your confidence and your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when it started at the home, in the home.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you're already immune to being treated a certain kind of way because it started at home.
Yes.
So now you find yourself in adulthood getting in relationships that are really not conducive to your well-being, but you're so used to it.
Right.
It starts at home. A lot of times, we hear that saying, but a lot of times your first bully is your parents.
I agree.
It's the people that you live with. And going back, if you sitting up being called everything, but a child of God, as they say, and then you go out in the community and then you're also being made fun of and ridiculed at school, it's just a repeat. And then, for a lot of times, by the time you realize that you grew up in a dysfunctional, abusive setting, you waking up and you're in your late 20s, early 30s, or mid 30s, late 30s, just now realizing everything that you went through was abusive and shouldn't have been going on. Right. Now you're trying to play catch up with people that did have a healthy family or a healthy functioning foundation.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Or that saying of what happens in my home stays in my home. That was like, I felt like hearing that as a child and now being an adult, I'm like, that was the craziest thing ever, because a lot of the trauma was happening in the home, but you would be afraid to go out and say anything because you're being told what happens here stays here.
Oh yeah.
So who's protecting you from everything that's taking place in that home?
Like he says, nobody.
Exactly.
Nobody, baby.
Nobody.
And then it makes you think, who exactly are you protecting? You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Who exactly are you protecting? And then when I think about it, okay, let's say if these people are your parents that you're protecting, do you not care enough about my feelings or what I'm dealing with to be concerned about what I'm going through and not tell me to keep these secrets to protect you? Because at the end of the day, you're not protecting your child. So
I mean, I'm like me. I'm a single mother or whatever, and I realized, I had to start dealing with my childhood trauma and this, that, and the third. So I'm feeling like as I'm healing, I still have residual effects of my childhood that I unintentionally, my child is affected by my trauma. So it's like a constant battle of trying to heal and trying to not damage your child. It's like at that in between stage. That's the hard, that's the hard place to be.
Yeah.
And I think for in the healing place that I'm in now in my life, I think sometimes I've learned the word grace over the past couple months from one of my good friends, because a lot of the times, as parents, we expect, our parents to protect us from whatever.
Yeah.
And I have learned that sometimes they don't know how to protect us because nobody protected them.
That's good. Yeah.
So it's like when you begin to really put yourself in a person's shoes and just think about where you are in your life while raising children or whatever the case may be, or just going through your everyday life, you begin to understand some things a little better. Right. If you're open to it. If you're a closed-minded person, you're just going to always have that mentality of you're the victim.
Yeah.
Right.
But also that takes open communication. Like, as I said, I have my son, and I tell my son, because I dealt with depression, dealt with that like my whole life. So I explain it to my child. I'm so transparent. That way you don't internalize nothing that's going on with me. I feel like the conversations aren't had. That's where the problems come in.
Yeah.
And even though you speak those things, just from it being your child and the connection that's there, it's so hard also. Like the child can, we can have those conversations, but, like you said, conversation is very important, because as your child being there and seeing you having an up day and a down day, and then it's like, okay, is my mom okay? It's hard not to worry about your parent, but it's like when you have that open discussion and they have a better understanding of what's going on, then they know, okay, well, I'm not the issue. Okay, it's a down day for mommy. Let me do a little something extra that can take the load off of her.
Right.
But that's things that growing up, I know for me and growing up in my household, that's not how we did it.
You were supposed to mind read.
It was a lot of mind reading. Stay in the child's place, go have a seat. And I'm sitting here watching all the adults look like fools, and I'm the child, and I'm like, I can probably maneuver this better than y'all.
And that just the fact, it's amazing that, like you said, you're self-aware, you're aware, and then too, you're doing the work to heal, work on healing and getting that self-care while communicating. And like y'all all said, we didn't have that communication in the household. They just would walk in, and it's like you could just feel the temperature change, and you knew, we in trouble, or we about to get cussed out, or any little thing is about to cause an issue. And then they want to talk about, oh, well, you're an empath or you're a highly sensitive person, when in reality, not to say that you can't be a highly sensitive person or an empath, but in addition to, in reality, you're walking on eggshells because the people in your household don't refuse to communicate and don't know how to regulate their own emotions.
Right.
And it's like everybody got to be scared because certain people come in the house. I mean, even now I'll get a phone call from certain people and be like, oh Lord, here we go. I already know it's been to be on. And you over here hyperventilating in the car because somebody called you. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, y'all, I'm going to quickly go over the different types of dysfunctional families. Okay, let me try to get this back up, y'all. I'm struggling over here.
I know this is so simple, but like when you're talking about regulating emotions, I'm like, that is something that I know I wasn't taught. I don't know if y'all were. And even as an adult, I still don't really fully,
I had to teach myself.
Know the depths of.
Come on. I really had to teach myself, and I had to get down and dirty with it, because it's like I come from a family where instead of addressing, they want to sweep it under the rug. Like even
Right.
now,
Yeah.
during my healing process, like I mean, I decided to go beneath the surface. I didn't want to be a surface healer, because
Yeah.
all you're
Yeah.
doing is you're masking everything. You're still covering it up.
Right.
So in your
Mhm.
mind, you're telling yourself, "Oh, I'm healing. Oh, I'm better. Oh, I'm doing the work to do this." But then when you start digging and you wonder why some days you still can't get yourself up out the bed, or some days, you know, you have so many trigger points because you haven't dealt with those things.
Yeah.
So now for me, I just decided to, if today I wake up and it's not a good day, then I'm going to voice it. Today is not a good day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a good day. I'm not going to try to pretend it is. Today is not a good day. Let's try it again, you know, tomorrow or later. And then whatever I'm feeling, I just express that. And I've learned to not be so hostile, because I used to be a very like, you know, I had to defend myself all my life. So you can say something that was just so calm and kind, and I'm like, what? What you say? What that mean? Because of just defending yourself for so long.
Yeah.
So I really had to teach myself how to just feel whatever it is. Just go through it. Go through that feeling. Embrace it. Good, bad, or indifferent. Embrace it.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm going to quickly go over the different parenting types that you typically see within dysfunctional families. And I want you all to just kind of take note, because I'm going to ask you, what do you identify with the most? First, we have families where there's addiction, such as alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, compulsive buying, mental illness. And I personally just grouped unresolved trauma with this, because I believe wherever there's unresolved trauma, especially depending on how old your parents are, more than likely, you know, there's some mental illness lingering around that door as well, personality disorders, codependency, even if that's more of a behavior issue, but I still, you know, put it in that category. Parents who were controlling, strict religious, authoritarian, highly narcissistic, emotionally detached, absence due to, I mean, it could be death, divorce, abandonment, people who are working so much that they don't spend time with their kids, an abusive parent, or a neglectful parent. Just off the ones that I name, what type of environment would you say you identify with the most from your upbringing?
All of them. Every single one of them.
And the thing is, it's multiple different family members. It isn't just
Right.
one. It's like everybody participates.
Yeah, we can't even narrow that down. Way to narrow it down.
Oh my God.
And even now, the fact that we're talking about this, you'll have people saying, "Oh my God, how can you say this about blah blah blah?" And it's like, that's why we're in the problem that we're in. Y'all want to act like everything is okay, and it's not.
Exactly.
Okay. Now this is the last time I'm gonna share the screen, and that's it. We're gonna talk briefly. I wrote up some of the common rules and beliefs that we may share.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Families, okay? And we're going to talk about what you can identify with next. And those of you watching, feel free to chime in, all right? Okay, so
I'm a little scared. Come on.
There was so much more, but I had to condense this because I didn't want to overdo it. So I only did 2 slides. So some of the common toxic rules and beliefs within dysfunctional families. Now, these can be spoken or unspoken. Like Psych was saying, you know, you see these issues and you're walking on eggshells. You're just picking up like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be, you know. So the first rule, don't tell or don't speak. A second rule, don't feel. You don't feel your emotions. The only type of emotions you can express are happy, positive emotions. It's wrong to be angry or sad. And I think this is something huge that's in strict religious families. You cannot show emotions. Toxic positivity is what it is.
Honey. And you can't cry before they give you something to cry about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the third one, you deny all problems. Somebody mentioned that earlier. You deny the problems. And this is one that's big. I think I see this in a lot of families, especially families where the parents seem highly like narcissistic, antisocial type personalities. There's a lot of blame shifting and scapegoating.
Yes.
And my heart goes out to the child, especially being scapegoated as a child can create a lot of mental illnesses and psychiatric issues later in life. I feel like that's another thing in itself that we need to talk about, but it can lead to a lot of issues. Parents aren't held accountable. They never apologize to their kids or adult kids. You know, like you say, they did their best. It's looked at as a sign of weakness. Children should always respect and honor their parents no matter what. You tolerate and you overlook abuse, mistreatment. Children should be seen, not heard. It's wrong for children to be mad or angry at their parents. And this is the last one. Don't be a bother or rock the boat. Do what I say. Even when I do the opposite, there's a lot of hypocrisy in these families. Yes. You must never question our behavior, but go along with it. You must conform to what we expect of you, no matter what. Your feelings and needs are not as important.
When you conform, you're supposed to do what they want you to do, but really, they don't ever tell you what they want anyways. You just supposed to know.
Because they don't know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell me what you want when you don't even know what you want?
You don't even know. Make that make sense.
Right.
Well, now I'm getting in trouble for something you don't know you want, but I'm supposed to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That confusion, that's the worst. That's the worst.
And again, you're being placed responsible for an adult, and and that's not your responsibility. It's just it's ridiculous.
And like my mother is currently learning. I'm 36 years old now, right? Mm-hmm. And my mother had me when she was 14. So we grew up together. Mm-hmm. So it got to a point where she couldn't separate the two of, I'm no longer your baby girl. I'm now your adult daughter. Mm-hmm. So it would be times where I would voice my opinion. She's like, oh, you're disrespectful. I said, no, I'm grown. Mm-hmm. And you can no longer just like mute me. Right. You know, like you don't want to hear what I have to say. So now it's either we're going to talk about this or we're not going to talk, because what you're not going to do is talk to me the way you want to talk to me. It has to be some type of respect, you know. And after a while, my mom learned, because, honey, I will hang up. I say, Mom, I'm getting ready to hang up on you, okay? Mm-hmm. No disrespect, but I'm getting ready to hang up the phone. And I will hang up. And then she will call maybe an hour later and say, you know, I recognize what I did wrong. Mm-hmm. Like I had to get to the point where now I'm holding everybody accountable for what they're doing, because you cannot handle me that way. And then when you go from being in situations as a child that's out of your control, now as an adult, you're really ready to stand up and say some things that you couldn't say when you were younger, because you would get a beating for it.
Right.
I was that child that was always in trouble because of my mouth. Mm-hmm. Always.
I love that you shared that, because to me, what I saw was you were putting up boundaries. And when people have been used to kind of doing whatever, treating us however, and getting away with stuff, when you start putting up those boundaries, it's either one or two things. They're either going to start respecting them, or they're going to go the other way and they're just going to reject them. But I'm glad that your mom, you know, got the drift of that.
Yeah,
around,
because it was you're going to get the drift or you're going to lose me, basically. That's what it was going to be, because for so long you allow people to do what they do to you because it's out of your control. As a child, you really don't have, like, if everybody is against you and then you're being abused, who is standing up for you? When you stand up for yourself, you're getting beatings for standing up for yourself.
Exactly, Lord. For me, my situation was, I would consider myself, and we're going to get into some of the family roles as well, but I consider myself, I was more of the family caretaker, like like my therapist said, she sensed a little bit like I was the hero child. You know what I mean? The family caretakers, like I'm the parent to everybody. My situation was, it was four of us. My mom was pretty much the sole provider. My father was absent. I knew who he was, but he wasn't there. He had the chance to be there, but he wasn't. And what I found myself doing was being my mother's mother. My mom has her own trauma and things that she needs to work through. And I found myself being in that parental position, taking on responsibilities, being expected to do things that was not my responsibility. And that followed me well into adulthood. And I found myself doing a lot of things that I should not have to did for some of my nieces and nephews because of the same issues, some immaturity. So here I have to step in, protect people, stand up, defend people, doing things that I should never had been placed in the position to have to do. But at the end of the day, this is what I don't like about these type of families and situations. The children are forced to be in parentified positions, but at the end of the day, when it's convenient and beneficial for the parent, they want to be the parent. But where were you when people were getting abused? Where were you when people were being neglected? But all of a sudden, you're the parent now. You see what I'm saying? There's confusion and role confusion, especially for the children. And y'all, it's crazy. But for those of you, some of y'all may know, but I had to walk away from my mom and a few people within my family. I keep in contact with some of my nieces and nephews, but there's a lot going on within my family. And I believe that stepping away was the best thing that I could ever do. It was the best thing that I could ever do. I feel like for the first time, I'm focusing on myself and not all of the chaos going on around me. I used to say this, and I said it from a place of more so being overwhelmed. Like, I feel like my family was my problem. Like, I feel like I like my life. My life is fine. I don't have problems like this. I feel like people are dumping their problems onto me.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
That's why I like being to myself.
Walking away.
Kind of like isolating yourself.
Yeah, it was a huge blessing. Like, I've lost 50 pounds since May. Like, I'm doing well. You see what I'm saying? Like, your family can hinder you. Your family can
listen, okay,
you from doing great things.
That's the crabs in the barrel, baby.
Yes, it's
that.
And we don't, and it doesn't even have to be crabs in the barrel, because if everybody use their common sense to just crawl the hell up out of there.
Yes,
that sound about too much. That sound about too much like right there.
Too much like right. Too much.
And Trisha, I'm like you. I think once I distanced myself, then that gave me time to process everything.
Yeah.
And start, when I can figure out, identify certain problems, then I need to come to you again and address certain stuff with you. Because while I'm in the mix, I can't see it. It don't,
Right.
When I start isolating my little self-work, then I'm like, hold on, this stuff I internalized, this wasn't my problem. This is your problem. This is something you need to address. You put your issues on me.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can really heal the way you want to when you're still around the stress. It's going to be hard. I really think walking away, and I know that's not possible for a lot of people, because a lot of people have to depend on certain people, financial reasons, etc. But I'm thankful that I was I felt like I was forced to be independent. I didn't have a choice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was grateful that I was in a position to be able to do that, because there's a lot of people that I know that want to step away, but they're dependent on their father for money. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, that's how they set you up.
Yes,
they set you up always need them. And the minute I've noticed that, just hearing people talk, when you no longer need a person, they don't have anything to talk about. See, people always want to have stuff to talk about. So if it's somebody that's helping you, you need a place to stay. Now they want to. oh, when you didn't have nowhere to go, I brought you in. And now you're getting on your own 2 feet. And then it's like, oh, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget who helped you.
Yes.
Don't forget. It's like, listen, you helped me when I needed you. I thank you. Now it's time for me to stand on my own 2 feet. That was the whole purpose of you helping me so that I can get on my own 2 feet and move forward. But the longer you make it to where a person need you, some people love to be needed.
And that's where that financial abuse to me comes in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times with these types of dysfunctional family dynamics, you know, the caregivers or the parents, they don't teach you life skills. So you're always, you're basically a child, even though you're an adult, but they never taught these to you.
Or the rule of, you always hear your parents say, oh, at 18, you getting out and
you grown. How? I don't know nothing.
If you haven't prepared me for life at 18, how do I go out here and survive if you haven't prepared me from this time to this time?
Right.
So you're actually just pushing me out the door, and I'm being fed to the wolves. I don't know how to survive out here. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So it's like,
honey, and that's how, like, and then even that with that, like, we're not taught any financial skills or anything.
None.
So it's like you always like behind because you don't ever really, they don't prepare you for life.
It just seems like a lot of people that I know weren't raised. They just grew up. A lot of parents believe that, or caregivers believe that just putting a roof over your head, having a little food in the cupboard, that's raising you, that's parenting. There's so much more to parenting than that. I look at it like foster homes do that, children's homes do that. That's not considered parenting. Like, there's so much more. Like, what are we learning?
Yeah. And that's the scary part, because then you have so many people out here having children who is like, oh my goodness, why are you having a baby? Because when you look at them, like, everything is just so cute and pretty, but it's so much more that goes into that. So now you give birth to this child and you haven't taught them anything. Anything at all. Like, including how to wipe themselves properly. Why? Because you don't know how to wipe yourself properly. You may be 30-something years old and still don't know how to wipe yourself correctly. Wash yourself correctly. Well, now it's just like, oh, but I'm a bad chick, or I'm that dude, or I'm, like, it's just, priorities are so messed up.
Yeah, they are.
But then also, y'all, I don't want to keep stressing the whole thing with the slavery, but I'm like, wonder at what point in life were any of those things really taught.
Because again, I don't really recall parents really taking the time to really teach. It was just, they were always either in a rush or frustrated or mad
or have to work, like and then it's like they have a lot of weight that they have. I mean, I assume a lot of us were raised in single parent homes, so it's
my
like
grandparents raised me.
Right. So it's always like they're frustrated. They got a lot of
people in my family who, they did the best that they could.
My whole take on, like, I understand that, but I just look at it like this. At the end of the day, we're still accountable. I look at it, we're still accountable, because I look at it like children didn't ask to be here.
At all.
As a parent, you are responsible for the children that you bring into this world. Yes, you owe them an apology. Yes, you owe them understanding, whatever they may need to move forward. You do owe that to them. You see what I'm saying? Even if you did your best, you didn't know how to be a parent, you still had that child, you still owe them. Like, I can understand that, but you still are accountable to your children, because let's be real, at the end of the day, you did not have to have children. What did you think were going to happen? Now, unless this is a child conceived outside of, molestation, rape, or something like that, understandable. But what did you think was going to happen when you had sex? You see what I'm saying?
See, a lot of people don't know what was going to happen when they had sex, because the conversation about sex wasn't brought up in the home.
Especially in our community, they don't be talking about it.
It wasn't brought up. Like right now, I'm raising a 14-year-old, right? and she's in high school, freshman year. I'm thinking about at 14 years old what I was going through in my life. 14 years old, sad to say, I was already sexually active at 14. So now I'm looking at my 14-year-old and I'm like, oh my God, like what's going through your head? What kind of feelings are you having? But the difference is I'm able to have those conversations with her. I'm able to sit with her and say, listen, what are you going through right now? What's on your mind? What are you feeling? How do certain areas of your body feel? As uncomfortable as they may be, let's talk about it. Because if you come home and now you're feeling that little extra heartbeat in certain places, now I need to figure out what's going through your mind. Because now that beat going like this, and now you're trying to figure out, well, how do I satisfy this feeling? You get what I'm saying? But growing up, we couldn't go to nobody and talk about that. So now you see all your little friends out in the street and they having sex and they doing their thing or they talking about what they're doing. And now you want to be a part of that. But nobody at home is having that conversation with you because they choose to be in denial sometimes.
I'm telling you.
Like, oh, not my child. Oh, no,
sanctified
this is
and everything.
Bullcrap. You got to put yourself, what were you doing at the age of 14? What were you doing at the age of 15? And let's be real. No, that's the thing. Nobody wants to be real. It's so easy to sweep it all under the rug and say, oh, no, that ain't happening because I'm raising them to do this and I'm raising them to be like that. That has nothing to do with it.
What do you all think happens when parents transition from growing up to now parents and they just forget all the things that they did? Like, what goes on in that mind? Because it's like, if you just think about what you needed as a child, what you did, like what happens to that person when people become parents? What do you think happens to where they just forget where they came from or forget the things that they did? And all of a sudden just have these high expectations for their children, not for remembering that they were the same way or they had the same needs growing up. Like, what do you think goes on in their minds?
The same thing that go on with these church folks when they get saved and forgot that they was hot in the tail when they was out in the street.
They just hypocritical amnesia. I don't understand. It's just ridiculous.
Right. Now, let me ask you all something. Why do you think it's so hard for some people to see their families as they are? And I see a lot of this on social media with people that I know personally. I know it's a lot going on behind closed doors, but they're just this perfect, happy family on social media, or you can't tell them that their family's dysfunctional. Why do you think we struggle with seeing things the way that they are? Why don't we want to see it for what it is?
They're conditioned that way.
I was like, yeah,
that's just what they're used to. They don't see no wrong because that's all they see.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Saeed?
Similar to what you say, you get so you've been conditioned and been living your entire life living a lie. So, and then in some cases, we'll even know it's a lie, but we still try to save face because we got to keep this image. We got to uphold it. So,
yeah, I agree there. I mean, yeah, I'ma just
I mean, it's sad, but people really, and then, trigger warning. I know what took place with Bill Cosby, and people still want to have that Cosby look. They want that, the two parents, the nuclear household and everything, even though that's not really what's going on behind closed doors.
I'm telling you, like, I know people whose parents never took care of them, but you cannot tell. Like, they don't know them. But you wouldn't be able to tell. You know what I mean? Like,
on social media, that's the best mom and dad in the world. And meanwhile, you was absent for 10 years. Like, what is going on?
Exactly. Or some of these dads, they'll never see their kids. Then when the kids are coming, oh yeah, that's my baby. Don't nobody even know you. What you mean?
I can't stand it.
It's like as serious as this is, you can't help but laugh because
it don't make no sense.
It's so common too. Like, it happens so often.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
And then what gets me is like, is I also feel like there's also like this sense of pride, and then like we're not trying to feed into the negative stereotypes about the Black family,
Mhm.
but it's like after a while for me on a personal level, I'm like, okay, are these stereotypes or are these truths that people want to continue to be in denial about?
Mhm.
People don't just say that you have deadbeat dads just to say you have deadbeat dads. And
Right.
if it's a stereotype, how come so many of us can relate to that stereotype? Because we lived it. So
Mhm.
after a while, these aren't stereotypes. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's for my personal opinion. Because it's like, okay, if it's a stereotype, then how come like out of the 10 friends I have, 6 to 8 of us don't know who our dads are,
Yeah.
or our dads were not in our lives the way they were supposed to be? What is that?
Basically.
Come
Oh my
on.
Yeah.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, y'all, let me ask this question before we do have a phone line. So for those watching, if you want to call in, speak your piece, chime in on the conversation, you can actually do that. Let me go ahead and open up the phone lines. Bear with me one moment. Okay, as you can see scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Do y'all see it on your end yet?
Yes.
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 All right. So if you want to share your thoughts, join the conversation, call 213-87-TABOO, 213-87-TABOO. I'm just going to cut the phone lines on. So if you want to call, please feel free to do that. We're going to go ahead and go forward. Someone call, we'll pause.
I'm sitting here looking at a comment that my mother actually left, and
Which one? Okay.
I think this is in regards to the standards that are held over the children. And she said, because a lot of the times we see ourselves and don't want to go back and really believe that that's how we were. So I know if that's what she was directing that to, I know I remember having sit downs with my mom as I got older, and I was able to, in the beginning, she didn't want to believe, some things that she did to us as children, as far as like the way my mom used to whoop us. It was crazy. You would have thought she was fighting somebody in the street, but we knew not to play with her. You know what I mean? But it was sad that we only knew not to play with her because we didn't want to experience the beating that she would give if we did something wrong. One thing my mom didn't play about was her house being dirty. She didn't play about a dirty home. So if she came in a house from working all night and her home was a mess, she was going to beat you out your sleep. And to me, I'm like, well, that's child abuse, honey. But she's like, well, my house should have been clean. So, and then as time went on, we would sit and we would talk about so many things. And she was really unaware of the things that she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much had taken place that she was like, wow, I really used to do that to y'all. Like, at a point in time, it was like, oh, this should have been done, or it should have been done like this. But then as you get older and you realize, well, wow, that was a little harmful.
Mm-hmm.
So I will have
Or they do it to the kids. They do it to the kids, and then they do certain stuff to the kids or have expectation for their kids, and say like the grandkids come along. Then they like so much more lenient. And I'm like, well, hold on. If I would have did that, you would have killed me.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell my kids and the nieces and nephews, I'm like, y'all don't understand. If you was raised back when
y'all gotta
your grandmother would have had her foot up my behind already. She's sitting here talking about, come on, baby. Like, what?
And see, and that's where, to me, this is where, for me, it kind of becomes almost sinister. Because it's like, how do you change your whole
right? Like you could have done it the whole time, right?
Like, wait a minute, that is. And then you go from these dysfunctional families to dysfunctional relationships, whether that's platonic or romantic. You got people who will literally put on a persona for this person and then treat you like trash. But in front of everybody, it's just wild to how people switch up like that.
And
that need to be a whole show topic right there.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly why I don't believe when people throw that I did the best that I could.
No.
Because I watched people treat me one way And then I'll see a cousin or something come in and they treat them totally different.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're well aware of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't care is why you keep doing what you're doing.
Right. I do believe that. I believe that everybody, unless you have a mental illness, a little disability, something going on, we are aware of what we do. What I tend to think is that we wear masks. We wear a mask. Your true self comes out around people that you feel more comfortable and safe with. Vulnerable people like children, etc. Children, when children talk about their parents, I believe everything they say.
Yes.
Because, right, you are your true self around children. So, those who you think will, what I like to say, those you feel safer around to be yourself. Those are the people that see your true colors. When you're at work and you're performing and wearing that mask, those people don't get to see who you really are. That's not who you truly are. You're who you are behind closed doors and with those people that you feel safe around. So people know exactly what they're doing. It just depends on whether they, in my opinion, whether they feel safe around you to be their true selves. Because a lot of people, especially from dysfunctional families, we're wearing a lot of masks. Big time.
I'm telling you.
Big time. We're wearing a lot of
masks. I just realized, even now as an adult, I realized how dysfunctional my family still is, because I just had a conversation with one of my cousins and I'm like, it really hurts me that a lot of us that grew up in the same home together, or this was always together, now we're like distant.
Hold on 1 second. We getting a call, okay? Talking Taboo, Trista, how may I help you?
Hi, am I calling the right number for Taboo?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. Can you all hear the caller?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
It sounds like the caller is my mother. That's who it sounds like.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing well. What comment or statement would you like to make today?
Hi. Well, I just wanted to shed a little light on all that my daughter was speaking of.
Okay, go right ahead.
And I just wanted to share and touch base on what my daughter was saying. Yes, I had her young. I even myself experienced some things as a young age, and I didn't understand them. But I always taught them to, I'm glad that from learning late in the game from my mother, that it was because I used to be afraid of my mother to talk to her. And then when my mother did open up that door, because she realized some things about herself, she opened the door for us to be able to be comfortable to talk with her, then I was able to shed a lot and share a lot with my mom that my mom was unaware of. So from that experience, I then began to share and open up with my children to let them know, hey, I would sit them down once a month and I would say to them, is there anything that I might have done to you wrong? Is there anything that I may have chastised you for wrongfully that bothers you? I need to know. Because like you said, you don't know. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just think that you're doing what you think you should be doing, but not realizing that you're hurting your child.
Yeah.
So when we begin to open up that door and my kids begin to realize it's okay to talk to mom, I was really, like she said, it really blew my mind that some of the things that I didn't realize that I did do. Yeah. And when it was brought to my attention, what I did was embraced it. It was hard, but I embraced it. I apologized to my children, and I put my arms around them. And I let them know that I am so sorry. I'm human. And at that moment, that's when Deanna and I, and actually the date that actually happened where we was able to bond and we set up all night and we talked. I want to say that was in June of 2012. Where we all had experienced a situation and we came together, and when I listened to her, all I could do was grab my child and put my arms around her and tell her I was sorry. And from that point, my relationship has been so much better. Sometimes I don't like what she says or how she says it, but like you said, over the years, we have learned one another and we have learned how to communicate a lot better, and it has given us the relationship as a mother and daughter should have.
Yes.
And that's the blessed part of it.
I think
accepting responsibility is the main part of it.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge, and I commend you for being able to do that, because I know that's hard for a lot of people. So I thank you.
It really is. It's very hard
for being able to do that.
That you're like that, or that you was like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I thank you so much for calling in and sharing that with us. That means a lot, and I hope that it will be able to help someone out there as well.
Absolutely. Always with open arms. And you guys stay blessed.
All right. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Love you, Mom.
I love that she called in and had that open conversation about the relationship that y'all had and your experiences.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, because people will see us and they think that we've had this relationship all our lives. And I'm like, no.
Honey, it took work.
Again, it took two of us. It took both of us to be open and willing to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
Because the conversations were very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you expect to heal and move forward if you don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations?
You have to. Right. You have to. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. I know we're winding down on time. I wanted to ask just a few more things. At what point do you believe that it's time to walk away from a dysfunctional family? Family.
I feel like when you can't. I feel like when your family doesn't want to, have those conversations, they don't want to be accountable for their behaviors and how they treated you. Because at that point, you can't force anyone to change or to want healing or to make progress. And at that point, you may have to walk away because you've done what you could do and you can't force any changes on anybody else.
Yeah. That's good. Anybody else like to add anything to that?
I feel like for a lot of people, this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has put things into perspective. People are starting to realize, that there's certain family members that they may need to distance themselves from and love from a distance. Going back to what, you just stated, you can't force anybody to, change themselves. They have to want to change who they are as a person and be accountable and be willing to be self-aware, because we've all done and said things that's toxic and dysfunctional, but when somebody addresses you, are you able to listen and take that in, or are you coming back with being defensive or downplaying it and making it seem like that didn't happen, and at that point
at that point you just have to walk away at that point. It's like you have to know, like, okay, I understand where you are in your life, even though that's not where I am. I respect it, and I'm going to move forward. Because you can't allow people to stop you from being who you are, but you can stop yourself from being who you are to that person.
So protect your energy. Protecting your energy is protecting your mental health, in my opinion. So
definitely. So just on top of what you all were saying, I was just going to say, when there's any type of harm being done, whether that's physically, sexually, financially, definitely emotional, mental, abuse. I do feel like there are certain situations where immediate removal is needed, especially when you think about like children, et cetera. Immediate removal is necessary. But I'm big on, really stepping away and putting yourself first. Because at the end of the day, you wouldn't tolerate this from a stranger on the street. So why do we give our families so many chances to hurt us? Like, let's talk about that real quick. Like, why?
Because they're family, and you feel like they didn't mean it. But you know what I mean? You do. You feel like, oh, they didn't mean it this way. They didn't mean to hurt me this way. But then once it happens, like again and again and again, it's like, okay, no, you meant this. You're doing this on purpose at this point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, knowing that we typically tolerate from families, they take advantage of that. They take advantage of that, because if it was somebody on the street, they would have left you alone a long time ago. And to be honest, you know, for a lot of us, if our family wasn't our family, would we really deal with them? Like, we really deal with them. This person was not your mama, daddy, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, grandma.
I have family that I don't deal with now because of lack of respect.
Yeah.
So I always tell people at this point in my life, with protecting my peace, I don't care about your title in my life.
Right.
If you are not living up to your title and the part that you were supposed to play in my life, then I don't have a problem with removing myself. I'm not going to return the same energy. I'm not wasting my energy on that. I'm going to remove myself. And that will be the best thing for me to do, because anything after that is just going to get ugly. It's going to just be like an ongoing thing where it don't have to be. I accept where you are. I see that you're not willing to change on some things that can possibly benefit you or whatever. So I'm going to just remove myself.
Yeah.
You have to know when to remove yourself, no matter the title. You have to know, because if not, you will find yourself in situations that will end up putting you 6 feet under.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Putting you or the other person, because depending on the situation.
Yeah, when to walk, knowing when to walk away is very important. But then it's like when you're in these families and you're being conditioned and you're being groomed to stay in harmful situations.
Then it's hard to know when it's time to walk away.
Right, because your boundaries has been stripped over.
You don't have boundaries when you grow up in these houses, and this is why, in my opinion, if you come from a dysfunctional family, the likelihood of you ending up in a dysfunctional relationship or having a pattern of toxic relationship experiences are high, because that's all you know. And I mean, again, going back to what you stated earlier, that religious text of how, you know, family is thick, you know, blood is thicker than water, and you're supposed to ride or die. And then people take that same approach to these toxic relationships romantically. Like, you riding and dying for somebody that's treating you like trash.
Yeah, like literally dying. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, now this is going to be the last question, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. What's the hope for these families? How do we move forward? How do we heal?
I just feel like we just need to have these conversations. The more we can have these open conversations, you know, I don't see any healing, any progress if people don't even have the conversation.
Yeah. That's good. Deanna, you want to add anything?
I agree. Just having conversation. You will be surprised where one conversation can lead. And it's all about how you're going into it. If you're going into it with the attitude of, oh, they're not going to change, they set in their ways, and you're already going into it wrong. Right. So when you're approaching those, you know, whatever, the family or whomever, it's like go into it with a positive mindset. Go into it looking for change. Go into it with looking for a healing, you know. So I know for me, with doing the work within myself and just trying with my family, I'm going into everything. I'm stepping into like the wilderness with the open mind of let's work this out. Let's figure it out. And I'm okay if we don't, because if we don't, then I know where we stand, and you go your way and I go mine with no hate in my heart. I just know that I've done my part.
Right. Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. Because that's pretty much what I did before stepping away. I'm the type of person, I love having conversations, etc. But again, like you were saying, it takes two. You can't do it by yourself. But I feel as if I did my part. I got the closure that I needed. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. You're only responsible for yourself. So yeah. Would you like to add anything to that site before we go?
You know, for me, the hope is to see people, like you said, have more conversations around this, be authentic and be willing to be open and vulnerable. and also be willing to hear about how you've done people wrong, how your behavior has impacted people in a negative way. Because a lot of times, like you said earlier, everybody's doing this, and meanwhile, it's like, okay, yes, things have been done to you, and things, you know, do need to be addressed. But I'm sure you've also contributed to the problem. So we all, like you said, had that conversation and be willing to accept and listen to what people are saying, you know, and hear some criticism and feedback about yourself as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Well, I want to thank you all. This has been our time, and I thank you all for this great conversation. And I'll be able to chat with you all again on next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same place. And thank you for the viewers who are watching and chiming in as well. I do appreciate you all. Be sure that you go to our Facebook and YouTube page and follow us, like us, subscribe, so that you're able to get the notifications on when we go live. Again, it's going to be every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, at the moment, you can only watch us live on Facebook and YouTube. Right now, we're not compatible with Instagram. So make sure that you go again to our Facebook or YouTube to watch us. Okay. Now, before we go, I want to leave you all with a little something. Okay. Activity follows identity. It's time that you stop playing the script you've been given and start becoming the author of your own life. Only you have the power to change your narrative. It's time you rewrite your story. Until next time.